All right, take it away, Melissa.
All right, so I'm gonna put the link to those notes in the chat here because I know it can be tough to follow along with live coding. So you'll have those to refer to if kind of things get a little jumbled there. But as I'm going through this, feel free to tell me to slow down or pause to ask questions. Since there's so few of us, I think you can just jump on the mic and feel free to speak up there. All right, so I'm gonna screen share. Let's see. All right, so the first thing to do is to go to beta.donet.org. And so when you go here, if you aren't logged in yet, you should see sign up, login in the upper right here. So first thing to do is click on that. And you can either log in by entering your email address. That will send you a login code, which then you can copy in to get logged in. Or you can sign in with Google, which is what I'm going to do here. So once you're signed in order to create an activity, we're going to go to My Activities. So this will be able to create one that we can save and hang on to here. So My Activities in the upper right. And then probably you have nothing here yet, or maybe one or two things if you've been playing around with it, but can click the plus new button to create a new activity and select document for just one single activity here. And so this is where we're going to be creating a Doenet activity. So we'll write our code over in the left here and see a preview of this uh, in uh, in the right. Um, so when we're creating Doenet activities, these are organized using something called components. And so these will look like HTML tags if you've done any web stuff before. So for instance, if we want to add a title, we'll use the angle braces and use the title component here. So once I type in title here, it'll make the closing one for me automatically. So that's pretty nice there. And I can say my title. Once I click update over here, I'll see the preview of my activity as students would see it over on the right. Another kind of basic component that we might want to use is a paragraph. So a paragraph will just be a P, and I could create that with this is a paragraph, and again, click update, and I can see those reflections or those changes reflected over here. If we want to do some automated answer checking, we can use the answer component. So I can say what letter comes after A. And then we can have nested components. So I can add in another component within this paragraph component. And I'm going to add in an answer that's going to allow students to give an answer, and the activity will tell them if they're correct or not. So I'm going to put in the answer of B here. So I'm using the answer component, and I give the correct answer inside of those tags there. So now when I see this, we have the answer blank here, and if the student types in the letter C, that's marked as incorrect. They type in B, now that's marked as correct. So something to notice, I just got this warning here. It's an accessibility warning that an answer should have a short description or a label. So I'm going to ignore these for now, but is good practice to add in those descriptions to make sure that your activities will be accessible to screen readers. Um, those are kind of basic components here. One thing that we can also do with components is use attributes. So attributes are a way to change the behavior of components and give us a lot more flexibility. One thing we can do with the answer component here is maybe we want students to be able to enter B, lowercase b instead, and have that also marked as a correct answer. So I can add in case insensitive, insensitive match equals true. So here I'm using an attribute, so it's going within that answer opening tag here. The attribute is case insensitive match, and I'm setting its value to be true, and that's going to make it so that the answer will now accept b lowercase b as well. So lots of components will have different attributes that we could use to change their behavior, and that gives a lot of flexibility there. The Doenet documentation is like the best resource for learning about different components and attributes. So to get to the Doenet documentation from an activity, you can click on the little question mark icon here, the help button, and there's a link to the documentation here. It opens it up in a new tab so you can go back to your activity here. And then I like to just go to reference, which has the components listed alphabetically, and you can go to the components and see information about them with examples and their attributes. All right, any questions before we start talking about graphs?
One question. I know you said like we will talk about this later, but just curious. So, for this accessibility, right? I have to put answer labeled and then type my description, right?
Yeah, so let's see, I haven't done this much yet, but I think label letter after B. I think that should something like that should take care of it. I can format this a little bit better here.
No, otherwise, no, when you type answer, it comes label. Do I have to select that? I forgot about it. Do I have to select that when I type answer? When you type answer, I got answer, answer labeled.
I could maybe chime in with that. So that was
Yeah.
an internal conversation we've been having. I am a proponent of. So I requested for that or for that component to be created. So Melissa, if you start typing answer somewhere, like maybe in a new
No,
line,
it gave you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you type
This
an
one.
answer,
Oh,
don't
I
autocomplete
see.
it.
Uh-huh.
It should prompt you. Do you want to use a labeled version of the answer?
Oh, yes.
So here you can see that it just provides you with a label that you can fill in automatically. Now, the discussion that we're having as a community, and would love for you all to join as well, is should this be the only version of answer that it's good practice to label everything so that documents are accessible from the very beginning instead of us having to modify them to make them accessible. So we'd love to get feedback from the community as well on if the goal is to make things accessible to all, is it better to then just have the label nested within an answer from the very beginning instead of having users type it? As of right now, you have the option. You can either just use a plain old answer, or you can use answer dash labeled, which will create this structure for you from scratch. You don't have to type all those details in. I think that's what Aishwarya was asking about.
Yeah. And one more question. So, since your computers from side, so I saw like in documentation, you can do alphabetical index or by component based, you can search whatever you want. So I just want to understand what is the difference between the attribute and the component. Like if I want to look at the something, like I want the meaning of section, component and attribute. Like attribute means I want to check only for, like basically, see, I want to do one equation. I got stuck. So I instead of going over alphabetical, I just want to understand when I have to look at the attribute, when I have to look at the component, like that I'm asking.
Yeah, so I would
Like,
think about like the components are like the objects and the
okay.
attributes are properties of the objects. That's sort
Oh,
of
okay.
how I would
Like
think
a
about
C
it.
problem. Okay, okay.
Yeah, great questions. All right, should we start talking about graphs? All right. So to create a graph, we're going to be using the graph component. Start that with the opening tag graph. The first thing that we're going to be doing is looking at graphing some lines. So there are different ways that we can graph lines. One way is just by using an equation. So I can just type in here y equals x minus 3, and now I'll get my accessibility warning again that I should have a short description or specify my graph as decorative. So I'll add in a short description to my graph that's demonstrating options for lines. If this was for a student activity, you would want to be a lot more descriptive so that you're providing enough information for someone who can't see it. So now we can see the graph here and see that line plotted. So we've got different ways that we can create lines. We can just use the equation. We can also specify the slope and a point that it goes through. So we do that using attributes. So again, I'll create a line, but this time I'll use an attribute for the slope. So this is going to be within that opening tag. I'm specifying that the slope is 2 and that this is going to go through the point 0, 4. And now, because that's enough information for the line, I'm not going to give an equation here. And when I plot this, now we see that other line showing up. Now, I probably want some kind of distinction between my lines. So for that, we can use style numbers. Um, so that's another attribute. So I can specify style number. I'll use 3 here since I'm going to be putting another one in between there. And that's going to change the color of that line. So now we can see that more clearly distinguished. The reason for using style numbers rather than being able to specify the color is, again, for accessibility reasons, so that someone has potentially the option to be able to control how different styles are rendered. So maybe they can't distinguish between different colors, but instead they want to view different styles as lines being dashed or something like that. So that can provide potentially some different flexibility with how we distinguish between things there. All right, so then another way that we can create a line is by specifying 2 points that it goes through. So then we're going to again use the through attribute for a line, but this time instead of just specifying 1 point, we'll specify 2 points and separate them with a space. So here we've got 0, 1, and 3 minus 1. And I'll add in a different style number. So this will be style number 2 for that one. So now I've got my 3 different lines here. If I want to label those lines so that I can refer to them in kind of elsewhere, I can add in a label here. So this is within that line component. So in between the opening tag and the closing tag for line, I'm adding in a label here, and I can label that as A. And so now I see that A showing up there, but maybe I don't love the positioning that it's right over the line, and I would like it to be the same color as the line, so I can use attributes for that. And so for this line, I can say apply style to label. That'll make the style of the label match the style of the line, and change the label position uh, to uh, top. And so then that'll kind of bring that off of the line there. So now we can see it's a little bit better. Maybe for this line, I'd rather have like left than top or something, but at least it's a little bit better than it was before. So I can do that and for the rest of the lines and add labels as well. Any questions at this point?
One question.
Yep.
Short description demonstrating options for lines. I'm not able to see it. So which means it will not show you anything. That's why we use short description. Like I didn't get the purpose of this short description.
Yeah, so that would be for like screen readers.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
we said label is for screen readers, so I got it is also another name.
So label when it's with answer is for screen readers. When
Okay.
label is in a graph, it's showing up as like an actual label there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of an inconsistent use of that term.
Okay. If label used in case of answer box, that is accessibility. For graph, I have to use short description.
Right. Mhm.
Okay.
I have to say, I never even thought about this, but
Yeah.
I think this is a good discussion to have. Maybe label within graph should be relabeled, pardon the pun, to graph label or something that indicates that it has to do with a graph.
Uh-huh.
I'll mention that to Dwayne.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking the question.
Yeah. Uh-huh. All right, so we also might want to graph functions. So I'm going to create another graph to take a look at that. So again, I'll have a short description here, graph demonstrating function use. And so here we're going to use the function component. And you can use attributes to specify the variable for your function, but as a default, we can always use x. And so I'm just going to use x squared here and graph the function x squared. So now if I make this update, I have that function x squared there. I added this above the previous graph, so the previous graph is below it here. So if we want to add a point to our graph, we could, do the work off on the side to ourselves and take, 2 and evaluate the function at that point. But it can be handy that in Doenet, we can actually do the function evaluation within Doenet. So to do function evaluation, we'll want to give our function a name so that we can refer to it. So I'm going to give the function the name f here. Again, that's using the attribute name here and specifying that the name of this function is going to be f. Now, showing outside of the graph how to use function evaluation, I can you have a math component here. And then to refer to the function, I use $f. To evaluate the function, I use a double $sign. So this will evaluate f, and then I can specify the point, the input to. So now if I update over here, we can see that the value that displays there is 4 because it's taking my function f, evaluating that at 2, so taking 2 squared and getting 4 there So I can get that function evaluation. So I can use that within the graph to plot a point on that function and have 2 and then the function evaluated at 2, and that'll give me a point right on the graph there. This can be especially handy, like looking forward to more advanced use of graphs where maybe we want to be able to vary this value here and have the evaluation of the function change to match up with that. But that would be a topic for the workshop next weekend. So a little preview there. One last thing that I want to mention here is that if you start kind of grabbing points or things here, you'll see that they can move around. So you might not want students to be able to move things around within the graphs, or maybe you do, but you can specify them as fixed in order to make them not movable. So we could say fixed for our lines here, for example. uh, and use that attribute. And now if I try to drag, well, I can still drag the graph. I think fixed works for a graph as well. And now I can't do any dragging there, so I can make sure that students aren't kind of messing up the graph there. So you can think about if you want students to be able to kind of transform things or not, and used fixed or not use fixed accordingly. All right, so we've got some exercises for you. Any questions before we go into those exercises?
Right, maybe silly. I have a question. So here function name fx squared, you put it right. Can I put also x, or since I have a line, I have to use only line for linear equation?
Could you repeat that?
No, like for function, like for drawing U-shaped graph, right? Like that
Uh-huh,
parabola, you put function, right?
uh-huh.
And for drawing a line, you put a line comment. Okay. So if I'm going to put instead of an x squared, if I'm going to put an x, it's going to draw a line. It doesn't work like that. Always I have to give a line, or it doesn't matter.
You can use a function to make a line. Yeah.
So
Is that?
same way, can I have an option like quadratic, cubic? No. So I can use
Mm,
line for my easy, but if you want like in function, I can have to use like x or x squared anything, right?
right. There is also a curve option to be able to do things like parametric curves. So there's other things and like circles and polygons and some other shapes that you can do there as well.
If I could chime in here,
Yep.
there are times when you will want to use line because there are attributes that the line component has that the function component doesn't.
Mhm.
So depending on what you're hoping to get out of your activity or your graph, you may be equally well served by using either component to the point where it doesn't make a difference whether you declare the line as a function or whether you declare it as a line itself. But depending on what you want to do with the line later on in the activity, and again, this is previewing what will happen next Saturday, where the topic of the conversation will be making the graphs interactive or answer checking based on what students have done with the graph. So at that time, when you're trying to build up these award structures for when something is correct or incorrect, there you might care about, oh, I need the slope of this line, whereas the function might not expose the slope as an attribute, but the line component might.
Mhm.
Whereas functions will have other things like minima and maxima and other cool things that, again, if you come back next Saturday, Dwayne and company will share those fancy features.
All right, so to get some practice with this and practice navigating the documentation, we've got some exercises here. I can copy these into the chat as well. So again, you can go to the documentation and click reference for an alphabetical list of components. So see if you can use the piecewise function component to create a graph of the piecewise function described here. And then use the circle component to make a circle and the polygon component to create a hexagon with the interior filled in. So I think we'll all stay in one group here unless there are so many questions that we need to split off. So yeah, we'll have some time to work on this and feel free to speak up if questions come up.
And just as an FYI, I will create one breakout room. So if, say, I and Sue are having a conversation, but someone else has a question, feel free to type in chat, can I get some help? And either Melissa or I, one of us will go to the breakout room with you. So no need to feel the need to stay quiet until someone's done asking.
All right, so I copied the exercises into the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing here. Remember, you can also see the notes document for the code from the graph examples as well as the exercises.
And I'll pause this part of the workshop. Recording, I mean. And I will share my screen. Okay. I wanted to do this so that you can also see how you can create documents within Doenet. It's not just interactive problems. You can organize a set of course notes and any presentations you might be giving. It doesn't look like the typical PowerPoint presentation, but you can get a lot across in a very short period of time. So you'll notice a couple of features which we will talk about in future workshops. One is called a cascade, and the benefit of a cascade is that these things or these sections that are closed off will only open as you answer questions correctly. So I'm starting off. So in fact, let me close all this stuff so you're not getting distracted. Now you'll notice that within the cascade I have a section which is boxed, and the boxed aspect creates this boxed region around that text. There's a title for that section, and within the section is a paragraph that says solve the following linear equation. There's an equation, and then there's an answer component. So being unscrupulous students, what do we think the answer to this question is without necessarily solving it, but just by looking at the source code?
The answer is 3 because you already given the answer.
Yeah. So if someone is looking at someone being students, if they're looking at, the source for this file, they're going to be able to see that the answer is 3 because the question is statically defined. Nothing wrong with it, but that is one danger. And you'll notice one other feature of the cascade. Once you answer the question correctly, you get a nice green banner at the top, and then you'll notice that the next piece in the cascade opened up. So a pedagogical choice can be made here where you can say, okay, I have a sequence of things that I want students to see, but I don't want them to see what's coming up next. So now the question is, how do we randomize A and B so that this question isn't completely static? Well, we do things behind the scenes by putting things within setup components. So setup is the user will not see it, anything that goes inside setup, but Doenet will recognize these things. So one way or one component that I use very often, if you start typing in select, there are 4 options here. I'm just going to talk about select from sequence, but hopefully you can recognize select prime numbers will allow you to, select prime numbers. And if you choose select random numbers, you can give Doenet the distribution you wish to use. And you can, select random numbers from some interval given that distribution. So for the sake of this example, I'm going to use just integers, which I can do by clicking on select from sequence or typing that entire thing out. And I want a sequence, or I want a value for A, and I also want a value for B. So I'm going to call the first one A from, where shall we start our sequence picking from? What should be the lowest value for A?
Could say 1.
1. All right. Since you have your mic unmuted, where should we stop?
10.
Excellent. Now, I can say, well, this is fantastic. I want every other number. So one attribute for a select from sequence is step, or step size. So if we say step equals 2, it will start at 1. It will only ever pick numbers that are 2 away from the previous choice. And if you say step equals 3, then the numbers will be 3 apart. But for this example, I'm okay with just picking numbers from 1 to 10. And if I close, I should be able to get out of there. Now, I don't want to type the whole thing again. So one of the nice features about the Doenet editor is if you are anywhere on the line, you don't even have to highlight the whole thing. If you're just anywhere within the line, and you press Control-C or Command-C, depending on what type of device you have, and then you paste by Control-V or Command-V, it will make a copy of the entire line. So here I can change the name of my second number to B. And now again, B is being chosen from numbers from 1 to 10. So let's say we want to change the range from, 5 to 8. One possible choice here is that the values of A and B could both be the same. So you can use an exclude attribute and tell Doenet which value you should explicitly exclude from the choices for B. Now, Melissa mentioned this when she was talking about function evaluation, but another thing you can do in Doenet is reference to other things that have been declared already. So Doenet already knows what A is. And if we want to say, okay, I want to pick a value of B from 5 to 8, but I don't want to pick whatever A was. I want 2 distinct numbers. Here you can enter $A within quotes, and $A means whatever the value of A is, please exclude that number. Now you'll notice if I update the activity, I can enter 3 again here to move on to the next one. What do you think is the issue with still showing A and B here? How would I indicate what the actual value of A and actual value of B are? Well, think about how I use the reference here for excluding the value. So I don't want to show the letter A, I want to show the value of the letter A. Well, not letter, but variable.
So in name, again, we have to put $A.
No, whenever I want to use the value of A
Equation, sorry, dollar.
in the equation, I just put
Yeah.
$A. So now if I update, you'll notice, oops, I accidentally removed the line. I'm going to do something. You'll notice that with a cascade, if you want to troubleshoot something, you're going to have to keep answering the first question to open up the second section. So there's an attribute to cascade called reveal all. Now everything is revealed. So while you're troubleshooting, you can build it, but when you give it to students, just make sure you take off the reveal all attribute. Now you'll notice here the value of A is shown, and we know that this is being randomized because you'll notice up here there's a letter A, and this is a variant. If I click down, I'll go to the next variant, and the value of A is now 3. So as we keep going through the different variants, you'll notice the first equation that was not parametrized, or randomized numbers, were not used, it will always show as x plus 1 equals 4, Whereas here, you're seeing x plus 4 equals b. So as I keep going, different values of a are showing up. Now I'll ask the question again. We showed the value of a by pointing to it by using the dollar sign. What do you think the modifier should be for b?
Same way, $B.
Same thing. So if we do that, lo and behold, now we have this. And obviously I can't show this to you, but no matter which variant you pick, the value of a and b will never be the same, because we explicitly said choose b from 5 to 8, but never, ever, ever choose a. So that's one of many, many different ways of doing this within Doenet. Now the question is, the answer is unknown to us at this stage because I don't know what b minus a will be, because I don't know what b and a are. Only Doenet does. So what we can say is, I don't want to sit here and figure out what the combinations would be for each of those values of a and each of those values of b, but you can say that the answer is some mathematical value, and the mathematical value is the value of b minus the value of a. And if we enter this, if I type in -1, it'll be marked correct. But one downside of this is, if I type in -1 plus 1 minus 1, that will be marked correct as well. Because Doenet is just looking, as of right now, for give me anything that's equivalent to the difference of b and a. So within answer, you have things like symbolic equality as an attribute that you can select. So it modifies the answer choice. And the only thing that will be marked correct is something that is symbolically equivalent to the value of b minus the value of a. So if we try to do this with -1, it is going to mark incorrect. Why do we think this is? Even though that is the correct answer. In the interest of time, I wish I had more, but I'll give this away. If I type in 6 minus 7, Doenet will mark this correct. But -1 is being marked incorrect. Why do we think that is?
I see. Well, $B minus $A is 6 minus 7.
Correct. So this is looking exactly for the value of b minus the value of a, which is not the simplified expression of b minus a. So if we take math and modify it with the simplify attribute, then you're telling Doenet, I want my answer to be exactly equal to the simplified version of b minus a. So b minus a is -1. And if I type in -1, I'll be marked correct. But if I try any other version of -1, it will be marked incorrect. So you have granular control over what level of simplification you're finding acceptable. So if you're, doing something with analysis or even upper division courses, calculus and beyond, you might be okay with that. I am not okay with students in my intermediate algebra courses just writing 6 minus 7 and stopping. I need them to go that extra step and tell me that 6 minus 7 is -1. But if you're okay with 6 minus 7 in your discipline or at your level being left as 6 minus 7, Doenet gives you the freedom to do that as well. So there's a great deal of flexibility. Depending on the attributes that you use, you can change the type of question you ask and also the type of answer you're willing to accept. Looking at noon, this was the task I was going to assign you. To write a linear equation of this form so that you only have integer solutions between -3 and 5. So perhaps this becomes homework for anyone who wishes to engage with this after our workshop today. And then the second thing is perhaps to create a quadratic expression without a leading coefficient of 1, so a non-monic quadratic. Parameterize the values of a, b, and c so that the factors are of the form ax plus, or not a, but ex plus or minus f times gx plus or minus h. But with that, consider what types of answers you can get out of factoring a non-monic quadratic. I guess the hint would be to think about, is there a greatest common factor to the entire problem? And if there is, how would you deal with that in Doenet? So oftentimes, just because something is random doesn't mean that it gets the point across. There are constraints that you have to place within the select from sequence and how you're constructing and putting the problem together to make sure that the learning target is being met or is being identified, not necessarily just we're randomizing things for the sake of randomizing them. Doenet allows you to pick your level of randomization to achieve whatever target you're trying to achieve. So if you're okay with rational solutions to linear equations, you should construct your problems so that that happens all the time. If you're not okay with that, and you're teaching, sixth graders, for instance, or fifth graders, very, very simple equations, you don't want to scare them with, crazy fractions. Since I have your attention, I'll share a couple of these links in a follow-up email as well, but one way that you can share a document like this with other folks is you can click on Share publicly, and I get a copyable link. So if I share this link in chat, you should be able to see everything you see on my screen as well. So this way, if you're having trouble with something that you're working on between now and the next workshop, you're welcome to share questions or share a link like this on, let's get this off my page. You have the ability to reach out to us on the community discussions board, read the documentation, join us on Discord, which has a great community on it, and then Facebook. We have a new Facebook group, but you're welcome to ask questions there as well. Easiest way to do this is just to share a link to the activity and say, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, and unfortunately things are not working the way I want them to. And we'll be more than happy to have you join the community and also help you along. A quick note about the next workshop. There is one workshop coming up next week, Saturday, same time, on dynamic and interactive graphs in Doenet. I'll share a direct link to it in the chat as well. Where did I place it? Right there. You're welcome to sign up for that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to stick around and help you with either this or graphs. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. If you're planning on hopping off, then please do keep an eye out on your email for a post-workshop survey. It helps us figure out, when to offer these things. Some folks are able to attend them. Some folks are not. So we're trying to find a convenient time for the most number of people so we can get the word out to as many as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and enjoying your Saturday with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question. I missed the first workshop, so I'm just wondering if I am able to watch and record the video. So maybe
Give me 10 seconds. Let me stop this recording.